In a village nestled between golden savannas and dense forests, where the river sang softly against its rocky banks, lived a man named Jalen. The village of Baruma was known for its vibrant markets, filled with traders who sold everything from woven baskets to exotic spices. People traveled from neighboring lands to buy and sell, their voices blending into a chorus of bargaining, laughter, and the occasional dispute. Jalen was a simple yet hard-working man who had one goal: to provide his people with healthy, clean food. He was known for his dedication to quality, always ensuring that his fruits were fresh, his grains free of impurities, and his vegetables picked at the peak of ripeness. Unlike the other vendors, who paid little mind to cleanliness, Jalen meticulously washed his produce, carefully stored his grains in sealed containers, and ensured that his food was untouched by dirt and disease. But in Baruma, Jalen's efforts were met with indifference, if not outright ridicule. "Why should we buy from you when others sell the same food for less?" the villagers scoffed. "Your food might be clean, but our bellies don't care for fancy meals. We want what is cheap and filling." Jalen tried to explain. "A few extra coins today can save you from illness tomorrow. You do not see the insects crawling over that meat? The mold growing in that bread?" But they would only laugh. "A little dirt never hurt anyone," they would say, waving him off before turning to the cheaper stalls. Jalen's heart grew heavy with each passing day. He sat by his stall, watching as villagers crowded around other vendors who sold food that was old, unclean, or even rotten. Flies swarmed over raw meat left out in the sun, fruits sat in baskets covered in dust, and hands, unwashed and sticky with grime, passed out loaves of bread to hungry customers. It pained him to see mothers buying spoiled food for their children, knowing it could bring sickness. Some vendors even mocked him openly. "Jalen, you act like you are a king selling gold. But food is food, whether clean or dirty. You will go hungry before we ever buy from you." Even the elders, whom Jalen respected deeply, showed no concern. "Our ancestors ate this way, and they lived long lives," they reminded him. "You worry too much, young man." Despite their words, Jalen held firm to his principles. He could not bring himself to sell what he would not eat. Each morning, he would rise before the sun, selecting only the best produce, washing and preparing everything carefully. He would sit at his stall all day, smiling politely at those who passed, though his heart ached with loneliness. The children were the only ones who did not judge him. They would come by to play near his stall, watching curiously as he cleaned and arranged his food. "Why do you do all that?" one boy asked. "Because I care about what I sell," Jalen replied. "Good food should give strength, not sickness." The boy nodded, though he did not fully understand. He ran off to join his friends, leaving Jalen to sigh and return to his work. Days turned into weeks, and Jalen's stall remained mostly untouched. He made little money, and at times he wondered if he should give up. Was it worth it to fight against a mindset so deeply rooted in his people? Should he lower his standards just to survive? But deep inside, Jalen knew he could not betray his values. He would rather remain the lonely merchant than sell something that could harm his people. And so, he waited, unaware that change was just around the corner. One evening, a terrible sickness spread across the village. Stomachs twisted in pain, fevers burned like wildfires, and children cried through the night. The healers shook their heads. "This is the curse of unclean food," they warned, but it was too late. The village was trapped in suffering, and no one knew how to stop it. As the night stretched on, Jalen watched in silence. He had seen this before. In the neighboring village years ago, contaminated food could bring illness, even death, yet his warnings had gone unheeded. Now, the truth lay before them in the form of their pain and weakness. He rose early the next morning, as always, and prepared his stall. Though the village groaned with sickness, he continued his routine. He selected only the freshest vegetables, cleaned them carefully, and arranged them neatly. His hands moved with purpose, not with greed, but with devotion. He could not force anyone to buy his food, but he could still offer them something pure. By midday, the village square was quieter than usual. Few had the strength to work, let alone haggle over food. A frail woman, her face pale with illness, approached Jalen. "The sickness is strong," she murmured. "The healer's herbs do little. Do you have anything that might help?" Jalen looked at his stall, then back at the woman. "I have only what I have always had," he said softly. "Food that is clean, prepared with care. It may not cure, but it will not harm." The woman hesitated. Her eyes flickered to the produce, and she nodded weakly. She purchased a small portion and left without another word. As the day passed, more people came, drawn by whispers of Jalen's untarnished goods. He did not raise his prices, nor did he boast. He simply continued his work, offering the same respect and care he always had. Days turned into weeks. The sickness lingered in some homes, but those who ate Jalen's food seemed to recover faster. The elders, once dismissive of his ways, began to watch him with cautious respect. They saw how he labored, how he ensured that nothing unclean touched what he sold, and they began to wonder if their ancestors' ways, though honored, might need to change. One evening, the village chief himself visited Jalen's stall. He was an old man, wise and proud, but the sickness had left him weak. "Jalen," he said, his voice hoarse, "for years, you have warned us. We did not listen. Now we suffer." Jalen said nothing, only listened as the chief continued. "Teach us your ways," he said at last. "Teach us how to prepare food as you do, how to ensure that it gives strength rather than sickness." Jalen bowed his head. "I will teach," he promised, "but it is not enough to learn. You must believe that change is needed." And so, the village changed. Jalen taught them how to clean their produce, how to store grains to keep them free of rot, how to prepare meals that nourished instead of harmed. It was not easy. Some resisted, clinging to old habits, but the memory of the sickness was fresh, and one by one, they followed his example. Months passed, and the village flourished. The people grew stronger, their children healthier. Jalen was no longer the lonely merchant. He had become a teacher, a guide, and a man respected by all. One day, as he sat by his stall, a young boy approached him, the same child who had once asked why Jalen cleaned his food so carefully. "Jalen," the boy said, "will you teach me too?" Jalen smiled. "Of course," he said, "because good food should give strength, not sickness." And so, Jalen's lessons lived on, not just in the village, but in the hearts of those who carried his wisdom forward.